So you've gotten that NHS interview email that says you've been invited to an NHS interview. Congratulations. Today, we'll be going through sample questions and answers for a Band 2 role. This can either be for a healthcare assistant, a porter, or even an admin role. Please stick around to the end of the video so you can get questions and answers of what is expected of you during such interviews. I've sat at the other end of the table as an HR professional, so I know exactly what is expected of you when you're sitting in front of the panel. This is the year that we smash the interviews and get those jobs that we really want. 2025 is the year for you. I'm an HR professional with over 20 years working within HR, and I have over 10 years working within the NHS. So I actually know what I'm talking about with regards to ensuring that you land your roles within NHS. I've had roles that covers from recruitment to employee relations. So I actually know how best to secure that role within the NHS. If you're hoping to secure your role in the NHS this year, hit the subscribe button so you get notifications of all my videos where I drop you questions and answers of real life examples of interviews that I've been part of. I try to drop videos weekly with regards to questions and answers within the NHS. So Band 2 roles, what roles do this cover? These roles cover basically entry-level roles, admin roles, clerical roles, and even some healthcare assistant roles that are very, really basic for you to just get your feet into the NHS. The key qualities that are required for someone that is going to be a Band 2 is teamwork, reliability, compassion, empathy, because in most cases you are always like the first face that people do tend to see when they come into the hospital. So you remember those people that sit at the receptions when you come into the hospital or any healthcare setting? These are people that are mostly in this kind of roles, the Band 2 roles. They are the face of the organization. So we need to ensure that you're exuding compassion, you're exuding empathy, you're exuding relatability, you're being able to be reliable within the team that you work with. So working together collaboratively, those are the kind of things that we're looking for as a Band 2 when you apply for an NHS job. It is important for you to realize that the questions that will be asked for a Band 2 is really about the values of the NHS. So NHS values, it's not more about technical skills or your technical ability. It's about the NHS value. How do you portray the NHS values? What values are you able to portray properly? What values are you able to bring to the organization? These are the kind of questions that would be asked during your interview. So you need to ensure that you know what the NHS values are when you're going to be going for an interview for a Band 2. In today's video, we'll be going through 5 sample questions that are likely to come out during an NHS Band 2 interview. These are based on real life examples of questions that we've asked during an NHS interview while working for an NHS organization. You will need to stick around to the end of the video so you don't miss any vital questions that would help you smash that interview in 2025. When answering those questions, I would want you to ensure that you're keeping in mind the STAR example, ensuring you're showing up to answer questions using these parameters. When you have these parameters at the back of your mind to answer questions, you will realize it makes things a bit easier for you when you are explaining yourself to the interviewer. So what is the STAR method? The STAR method is the situation, the task, the action, and the result. These are the things that you will need to keep in mind when you're answering your questions during an interview. We'll be going through 5 sample questions today. The first question that will be asked is, tell us about yourself. You'll need to ensure that you keep the short, straight to the point without having to reference so many other things, because you'll be given an opportunity to be able to say more as the day progresses during that interview. So tell us about yourself. You need to ensure that you're linking telling us about yourself to the NHS values. You will also need to ensure that you're linking your answers to the job description or the role that you've applied for. So for example, if you've applied for a role of a receptionist, you will answer the question by saying, I'm a caring and reliable person with experience in speaking to people on a one-to-one basis, ensuring that I'm clear, concise, and open to be able to understand what the request is. Tell us about yourself. This is the first question that is always asked during an interview for a band 2. You need to keep it short. Make sure it's relevant to the NHS values. Okay? So you say, I'm caring and reliable person with experience in this. So you link the experience part to the job that you've applied for. I am passionate about supporting patients and ensuring their comfort and safety, which is why I'm excited about applying for a role in the NHS. You need to just make sure that you're keeping it short and simple, straight to the point, and just giving them an understanding of who you are. This question might not necessarily need star answer, but just ensuring that you just tell them, let them know a bit about you in terms of your passion and in terms of your values aligning with the NHS values. The second question that is mostly always asked during a band 2 interview that we've asked during interviews is, describe a time you've worked as part of a team. So this question is really about trying to understand how you've communicated, how you've collaborated, and how you've worked jointly in a team. So you will need to explain this in a star situation by giving us an example of how you've worked together. It might be during school, it might be during a work event, or it might even be during a volunteering session, by just giving us the situation of what happened, the tasks that you performed, the actions you took, and the results of you working together as a team. So you need to try and go into detail with regards to the answer you're going to be giving. So I would always suggest that you have an answer in mind of a situation where you've done teamwork, where you've collaborated properly with people to get an achieved result or an achieved goal. The third question that would mostly come out during an interview for a band 2 role is, how would you handle a difficult patient, or how would you handle a difficult client? What they are trying to figure out here is how you respond to situations when things are not likely to go your way. So what we want to be hearing here is how you will stay calm, how you will listen, how you will communicate, how you will follow procedures, how you would escalate the situation to the right member of team, how you will go back as well to try and see if that situation has been resolved, how you would learn from that situation. It might seem like a lot of things that we're trying to get from you to say at this point, but it's your thinking skill. How do you want to be treated when you ask a question, or when you're going through a difficult time and you're not in the right frame of mind? How will you deal to try and calm that person down and try and ensure that you can hear everything the person is asking, to be able to point them out to the right team, to the right department, and give them the right answer? So it's about your listening skills, your empathy, your communication skills. How best do you want to ensure that this person gets the information that they're after in a calm and gentle manner? Fourth question that is always asked during an interview for a band 2 role is, how do you prioritize tasks when things get busy? So this happens in almost every NHS setting, especially in the kind of roles that you're applying to. So in terms of you being an admin person or sitting in reception, or even working in different parts of the organization as a band 2 member of staff, even as a porter, how do you handle things when things are busy? So what we want to be hearing for you as an answer is putting the safety first, prioritizing your work, communicating with the right members of your team, ensuring that you're dealing with the urgent matters quickly, ensuring that you're escalating things so that people that would be able to help you can come to your rescue as quickly as possible. So always have a situation of when things had been so busy and you've had to explain. So you explain the situation of how things got busy. You explain the task of what you had to do. You explain the actions of what you took and the result of the actions and the tasks that you've performed. So ensuring that you're still keeping in mind the STAR method. The fifth question that would most likely come out during an NHS interview for a band 2 is, what does the NHS values mean to you? So you need to understand what the NHS values are. You also actually need to know what the NHS values are. So what are the 6 core NHS values? Compassion, respect, working together, improving lives, commitment to quality, and everyone counts. Those are the 6 NHS core values. So when you're giving your answer, you need to at least pick one or two of these core values to kind of expatiate on a bit, to let them know that these values that the NHS exudes is also what you practice as part of your life. So you need to ensure that you're saying all this as well when you're saying the answers. What do the values mean to you? You need to talk about how improving life, the quality of care, how you're compassionate, how you respect everyone, how you want to work together. So that's the teamwork. So understanding all this would ensure that you are seen as the best candidate on the day. Those are the questions that would likely come out during an NHS Band 2 interview. So another quick thing that you also need to know when you're going for your interview, you need to ensure that you're dressing appropriately. Don't just dress as if you're going to see your friend, or because it's an interview, you need to ensure that you're dressing appropriately. You also need to ensure you have one or two questions that you would like to ask the interviewer as well, because they'll want to know that you've done a bit of research about the organization that you're working in, or done a bit of research about the team you'll be working with as well. So have one or two questions about the organization, about the team, and about the role that you will be doing as well. Have at least 3 questions for you to be able to ask at the end of the interview. There's nothing wrong with you writing down these questions and then reading them out to them at the end of the interview. There's nothing wrong with that. We do encourage people to ask questions. Even if it's even something that have been said during the interview, you can always try and kind of point it out or kind of say to them, oh, I have this question. We always enjoy it when people ask us about the questions relating to our organization, relating to the team. It shows that you're enthusiastic and you've actually gone to read up about the team that you'll be working with. Thank you for sticking to the end of the videos. I hope you've enjoyed this video. My next video would be about Band 3's interview questions and answers, where I'll be giving you practical, real-life questions and answers that I've asked during an interview as an HR professional sitting on an interview panel. You don't want to miss that next video, would you? No. So please stick around to the end. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel, where I'll be bringing you much more interview questions and answers with regards to the NHS, where we know it's the best place to work. I'm sure you've seen all my other videos about the benefits and all other videos I've done with regards to getting your jobs within the NHS. So well, to go and watch them, and I'm sure they'll bring value to you or your friends. Please don't forget, like, share, and subscribe. Until my next video, where I'll be bringing you more insider tips, questions, and answers into NHS real-life interview questions. Until next time, take care. Bye. You've landed that Band 3 interview. Congratulations. You are one step closer to leveling up in the NHS. These Band 3 roles are a bit more technical, or the roles and responsibilities. The roles and responsibilities for a Band 3 role is a bit higher than what a Band 2 NHS employee is expected to do. In my video today, we'll be going through real-life questions and answers for a Band 3 employee within the NHS. This can range from healthcare assistants to different administrative roles within the NHS. If you want to know about these questions and answers, please stick around to the end of the videos, where I'll be giving you loads of HR tips and tricks to ensure that you ace that interview. 2025 is the year that we are smashing into the NHS with full force. Come along and let's get into the video. If this is your first time of finding me, thank you and welcome to my channel. I have over 20 years experience working in HR and over 10 years experience working in the NHS. So I know in terms of what is expected of you with regards to applying successfully for your NHS role. My roles have covered from recruitment to employee relations, and I regularly sit on interview panels that I assist, where I assist recruiting managers to shortlist and also be on the panel for them to ensure that they are hiring the best candidate for the roles that they've advertised. I know what the recruiting manager or the interviewers are expected for each role that they advertise. So when you're sitting in front of that interview panel, I know what we're expecting to hear for each of the questions that we ask. If you want to ace your interview in 2025, come along to this video, where I'll be talking about all the tips and tricks, how best to answer questions, especially for a Band 3 role in the NHS in this video. So 2025 is the year we get into the NHS. as you're watching my video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and subscribe to my channel, and also hit the notification bells where you'll be getting information once I post out new videos, so you're one of the first people to get notified and be able to watch my videos. So what kind of roles are covered in a Band 3? These are clinical support worker roles. The roles that are covered within a Band 3 are clinical support worker roles, admin roles like entry-level admin roles, a lot of healthcare assistants where you don't have any qualifications in healthcare. So what roles are covered for Band 3s? Clinical support worker roles are one of the roles that you would be as a Band 3. Ward clerks, healthcare assistants with extra duties. These are the kind of roles that you will be doing if you're going to be employed within the NHS as a Band 3. Within these roles, there are loads of extra duties that are just a bit above more than what is expected of a Band 2. So what kind of questions would you be expecting during an interview for a Band 3? There will be loads of scenario-based questions, a lot of tell me, how can, what happened, how did you? Those are the kind of questions that would be asked during an interview for an NHS Band 3 worker. These scenario-based questions would definitely be testing your decision-making skill. So more autonomy to do the work that you've been employed to do. So in this kind of interview questions, expect to be given more. In this kind of scenario-based questions, expect the interviewers to expect more answers, going further in depth in explaining yourself in your thought process and your decision making. So let's get straight into the questions, because I'm trying to ensure that these videos are not too long, straight to the point, and you are able to benefit so much from these questions and answers that I have sat on as a panel member when interviewing for this role. In this video, I'll be going through 5 different questions that you would expect as an NHS employee for a Band 3 role. The 5 questions that we'll be looking at would normally be based on scenario-based questions. These questions are real-life examples from an interview that I've sat on, and I've gotten these questions to bring to you here today to be able to let you know what to expect as a Band 3. These questions would cover different areas from ward clerks to healthcare assistants to admin roles. So these are what is expected for you to be able to answer, and giving us an example of the kind of ways that you would act if you were given that role. So we're trying to understand your thought process, we're trying to understand your communication skills, we're trying to understand how best you would deal with those situations, because as a healthcare assistant, as a Band 3 healthcare assistant, you would have extra duties more than a Band 2 healthcare assistant. So you need to be able to be decisive in some decision making that you're doing in that role. Like I said, we'll be going through 5 questions, but in most cases, the first question that they would always ask is, tell us about yourself. You would always say, I always tell people, always link this to the values of the organization, to the values of the NHS, to ensure that how you're portraying yourself is the right person that they want to see doing that job. So if you're looking at the organization that you're, look at the organization that you employ. Look at the although we'll be going through 5 questions, there's always an icebreaker questions about at the beginning of the interview. There's always an icebreaker at the beginning of the interview. So this is always a question of tell us about yourself. In this question, I always advise my clients to ensure that they are linking the answer about themselves to the values of the organization. You're linking your tell us about yourself to what has been written in the job description. You're trying to portray yourself as the ideal person they're actually looking for. So when you're answering this question, answer it based on the values of the organization, linking it, telling them how your values are aligned with the values of the organization, how your values are aligned with the values of the NHS. This question in most cases is not really scored, but they always use it as an icebreaker for interviews, just to get you settled into the interview mode. The first question that would be asked during a Band 3 interview is, tell us about a time Tell us about a time you've had to manage multiple priorities. This question is really trying to understand your decision making and your communication skills and your delegation skills as well in terms of your reporting. So this question is a very good example of how you can use a STAR method of trying to explain yourself to the individual or explain yourself to the interviewer or the interview panel. So what we expect from you is to tell us a scenario of how you've handled an important is about handling urgent tasks versus important tasks. What is urgent for you to do? What is an important thing you need to do? So you need to ensure they are using the STAR method to explain how you've handled this priority to ensure that the outcome of that situation was positive. You can also give us an example of you can also give an example of when things did not go right and the lessons you've learned from that kind of situation. I know you're always skeptical about giving examples of when things do not go right, but that shows your human side. But in a situation, I would always encourage you to always say positive outcomes for your interviews when you're giving your example. So in this situation, you need to understand, or you need to explain to the panel how you've handled urgent situation and how you've handled important situation. There are two different scenarios. In terms of the urgent things, what is going to happen if you don't do that immediately at that point in time? Is it a situation of life and death? Is it a situation of ensuring the safety of that patient that you're looking after, or that person that is in front of you asking for help? Or is it an important task that you have to perform that ensures a smooth running of the ward or the smooth running of where you're working? So you need to be able to weigh it up properly in terms of the STAR method. So you need to explain what the situation is. You need to explain what the task that you had to do is. You need to explain the action that you've taken with regards to that situation. And you then need to tell us the result of what happened in terms of an urgent situation. When someone came into the ward, the task was to ensure that you've given them the right information, and the action was to make sure that you've gone to find out the right answer, and the result was you were able to give it to them there and then. It's when they come looking for something urgently that you need to ensure that you're acting up on that more than the important thing, because an urgent thing might be the situation between life and death. So your decision making, your communication skills, and your risk analysis, in also your delegation skills, and ensuring that all parties are informed. So that's the kind of answer we're expecting from how you manage priorities. The second question that we've asked during a Band 3 interview is, describe a time you've dealt with confidential information. With working within the NHS, there's always going to be confidential information, because you will have access to ESL, you will have access to RIO, you will have access to patients' information. So you need to ensure that you're keeping the confidentiality of the patients, of the people that you look after. So what we want to be hearing in this answer is your data protection, your confidentiality skills, ensuring that your data protection is up to date. Your the NHS confidentiality policy is being looked at as well. The patient dignity is also paramount, because when you're looking at in terms of confidential information, are you ensuring that you are giving it to the right person, you have the right access, the right person, and ensuring that the right information is what is being shared. Also ensuring that the correct information is what you're actually passing along. So ensuring that what you're saying is correct, and making sure that you're giving it to the right people, making sure you're checking that this person actually needs to have access to that information. So your communication skills, your data protection, how would you want, I think looking at this kind of question is, how would you want someone that is asking about me to get information? So is it the right parties? Even though some bodies or some teams might come to you and ask for that information, are they meant to be having that information? Are they in charge of your care? What do they need information from. You also have a right to challenge. So your ability to challenge when things are being asked of you as well is what we want to be hearing from you as part of this answer. So you can give a scenario answer of a situation when someone came to ask for an information. The task was for you to ensure that you've already ascertained that this person should be having this information. Your action was to ensure that you've given the right information to them, and the result was that the right information was passed through and the care of that patient was able to continue because of the right information you've given. So looking at it in a scenario base, it's always a circle for you to always ensure that what has been asked is what is the information that you've given. A typical third example or a typical third question that is normally asked, or one of the ones that we ask during this interview that I'm talking about, is how will you deal with conflict between colleagues? So what we want to know is how would you ensure that this doesn't escalate into something more. So in this kind of question, what we would expect, the answer we'll be expecting from you is your escalation skills, how you escalated the situation, your listening skills, your communication skills, your empathy in listening to what is going on, your ability to mediate the situation as well. We need to be able to see your conflict resolution, how you've been able to manage that conflict resolution in that scenario. Your ability to stay neutral as well, not taking side of one other party over the other. Your ability to be empathetic, your ability to communicate, your ability to use clear language, your ability to placate the situation. Give this one also a scenario-based question of how you've been able to help colleagues that were having conflict and how your inference in that situation was able to bring a peaceful resolution to that situation. So ensuring that you're given a star answer from the star in terms of the situation, the task that you perform, the action that you take, and the result of that action. Ensure that this is clearly stated out when you're answering this question at the interview. The fourth question that is always asked, the fourth question that was asked during this interview is, give us an example of how you've improved a process. This is a very good question for us to be able to see your thinking and this is a very good question for us to be able to see your improvement skill of how you want to improve process, how you want to bring changes to the organization. So we are looking for innovative people within this. We were looking for someone that was innovative and a forward thinker in this team. So what we wanted to see was, how do you fit into that? How are you going to help us to bring change to our department in terms of the processes that we already have in place? So what we want to hear is your innovative skills, your forward thinking, how you can improve processes. So those are the kind of questions, those are the kind of answers that we wanted to be hearing. So this question is another typical scenario-based question where we want to see your thought process, where we want to see how you've improved processes within the places that you've worked previously. It might be from little changes that you've introduced to bigger changes. If I were you, with regards to these kind of questions, I will be looking at the team of how I can improve the process. Because I've read the job description, I will know that, okay, maybe things that have been done in this team is not how I would have done it. If I was in this team, this is how I would have done it. This is how I would have done it. So you need to bring in your innovation. You need to bring in your forward thinking. You need to bring in how you will bring people together to be able to buy in to into your new plans and your new innovation. So we want to be able to hear your forward thinking and how you brought resolution and you've improved the working life of people in that team. So give us a scenario of how you've taken a situation of the way they were working, of how you've tested the process, the actions you've taken in terms of ensuring that you've researched, you've gotten the buy-ins of senior management, and the result of the improvement that you've done in that team, and how it has improved the working life of people within that team. So you bring in all those answers, you bring in all those ideas into that thing, and also tell them of how you're innovative as well, how you plan on bringing in that side of you into that team. The final question we asked during this interview is, what motivates you to work within the NHS? With this question, we just want to see your passion. We want to see why you want to work for the NHS. Apart from the NHS, like I always say, the NHS being the best place to work, you need to show that you are enthusiastic about working for the NHS. So you're going to be talking about your love for the NHS, your passion for patient care, linking it with the values of the NHS, how those values resonate with you. So talking about how you want to make a difference, how you're passionate about looking after people, how you want to put your own stamp into improvement of the NHS. The NHS is the healthcare system for the whole country. So you want to make a bit of a difference, even if it's a tiny bit of a difference. You want to be part of that difference. You want to be part of that change. You want to be part of improving life. Explain it in another scenario-based answer for you in terms of style of how you've looked after someone, or how you've looked after someone in terms of the care you've given them, and how you realize that that is your calling, that is your passion, and what you want to do with your life. So ensuring that you are exuding confidence, you're exuding the love that you have for the NHS, and linking all that to patient care, to the values of the NHS, to the values of the organization as well, to ensure that you are seen as the best candidate for the role. So here you have it, the 5 questions that was asked during a Band 3 interview where I sat on the panel. With Band 3 interviews, we are always looking for the person that will be ready to step into a Band 4 role in the next couple of months. So you need to ensure that you are exuding confidence. You are not arrogant, but exuding confidence, showing your passion, letting your passion shine forth through when you're speaking to the interviewers. I hope you've enjoyed this video with regards to the NHS Band 3 questions and answers, which is based on real life examples from an interview where I was on the panel. Please do not forget to like, share and subscribe, and share this video with your colleagues, your friends, your families that you know that will be going for a Band 3 interview shortly. This video, I believe, would help them to be able to build on what they already know with regards to preparing for their interview for a Band 3 role. If you do need any help, I'm here to help you. Just drop me a comment in the comment section and I will get back to you as soon as possible. I want you to succeed, hence the reason why I'm bringing out this video series for interview questions and answer. But if you do need help on a one-to-one basis, I have a coaching service where I help numerous people land their roles in the NHS, from ensuring that you have the best application, to writing the perfect supporting statement and interview prepping. I give you all this help as part of my one-to-one coaching session. If it's something that you're interested in, please drop me a comment and I'll get back to you. Thank you for sticking to the end of this video. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Please do not forget to like, share, subscribe. Until my next video, where I'll be bringing you more insider tips into the NHS. Take care. Bye. Thinking of becoming a healthcare assistant, or you've just landed that role as a healthcare assistant in the NHS, this is the right place for you to be. In this video, I'll be sharing real-life NHS healthcare assistant interview questions, and of course I'll be giving you the answers to these questions. I would also be giving you tips of how to sound confident when answering those questions when you're sitting in front of the interview panel. Whether the role is in a hospital or a GP, or even in the community or in the mental health setting, these questions will be tailored towards answering those tricky questions that you might find yourself faced with when sitting in front of the interviewer. Please make sure you watch to the end to avoid certain mistakes that other people have made when answering those questions. In most NHS organizations, healthcare assistants are either Band 3s or Band 4s. So you need to be able to show that you're going to be coming into a role where you're confident, where you can work autonomously by yourself, where you are able to work as part of a team. In all NHS settings, there are healthcare assistants, and the roles and responsibilities that healthcare assistants provide are not dissimilar. The questions and answers that we'll be going through in this video would be transferable to whatever setting you are in, either being working in a GP center, working in an NHS hospital, or even working in a mental health hospital. I have a video on my channel, which I'm going to link in the description box, that gives you the do's and don'ts of what not to do when interviewing for roles within the NHS. I would suggest for you to watch that video to ensure that you avoid those mistakes. Do well to check them out. As a healthcare assistant, this might be one of your first proper interview that you're having within the NHS, and I will need to ensure that you sound confident enough when sitting in front of that panel. So you need to ensure that you're not sounding monotone, you're sounding confident, and you actually are well prepared for your interview. Not mumbling your words. It doesn't really matter about your accent. I tell my clients that in my coaching group that they need to ensure that when they are in that interview, they are enunciating properly. That means speaking clearly and confidently. As long as the interviewer can understand you, then they'll be able to pick out all the vital things you're saying during your interview. In this video, we'll be going through 6 different questions that are likely to come out during a healthcare assistant interview in the NHS or in the community or even in a mental health setting. All these questions are able to be used in all these settings. So please do stick around to the end to ensure that you pick up all the right questions that I'll be giving out in today's video. So that you're more confident about this video, I just wanted to let you know that I do sit on interview panels, and I've been on panels where we've recruited healthcare assistants into the organization. I know what I'm talking about with regards to what the interview panel wants to hear from you during that interview. The 6 questions we'll be going through are based on one of the interviews that I've actually sat on, where these are the questions we ask the healthcare assistant. I would like for you to please subscribe to my video, like and share it, and also comment, because I do like to hear from you if these videos are actually helping. Let's get into the video. The first question is, why do you want to become a healthcare assistant? This question is just like an icebreaker to ensure that you actually know the reason as to why you want to be a healthcare assistant. Ensure that you've read the job description and the About Us page of the organization from front to back. So the advert would have all the information as to what the job entails for you to be able to know how best to answer that question. Make sure that you're linking your answer to the job description, person specification, and about the role. So everything that has been written about the role, you try and link your answer to that question. And at the end of you explaining all that, you then try and give an example as to what actually prompted you to want to be a healthcare assistant. A typical answer about why do you want to become a healthcare assistant would start from you talking about the role of a healthcare assistant and how it relates to you. So bringing in your own personality as well. And at the end of that explanation, I would expect you to tell us a story as to what influenced you to become a healthcare assistant. And I would always say to ensure that they are using the STAR method to answer this question. A typical answer for this question, while working in a busy NHS organization as a cleaner, I normally help the nurses or the healthcare assistants, assisting them informally, whether helping them to prop up a patient or even get them a glass of water. Over time, I realized I wanted to play a more hands-on role with patient care, and I started shadowing healthcare assistants and went ahead to complete my care certificate, which enabled me to have the right knowledge and skills. While doing this, I also volunteered so that I could have hands-on experience for the role that I wanted to do. While doing all this confirmed to me my deep burning passion of always helping people and always assisting patients, and I realized that this is the place I wanted to be. Then I went ahead to apply for a role after speaking to one of the senior clinicians in the department, and she advised me to apply for this role that I've applied for today. Becoming a healthcare assistant means I can be more compassionate and give more hands-on care to the people that come through the doors of this organization. Hence the reason why I want to be able to bring my whole self into this role. The second question that might be asked is, tell us about yourself. This also links with, why do you want to become a healthcare assistant? What we're really looking for in this question is, tell us what drives you, what motivates you, what are the attributes that you can bring to the role that would ensure that you are the best candidate, that would look after the people that are in your care. We need to ensure that you are linking this to the NHS values about compassion, about dignity, about respect. Those are the key words that you need to ensure that you're saying when you're talking about yourself. You're explaining yourself as a compassionate person. You are talking about yourself as someone that ensures that the dignity of others is respected. You are talking about how you respect people's views, how you're a team player, how you want to collaborate with people. If you're using all these key essential words, those are the kind of things that are giving you extra points when we are taking off answers to this question. You will need to just give us an explanation as to what drives you or what motivated you to actually want to apply for this role. So when you're telling us about yourself, you can tell us a story of how you looked after your grandma. Following from her coming back from the hospital, maybe she had a surgery, then you looked after her at home, the care, the attentiveness, ensuring that her needs were being met. All that will show that you have a sense of purpose and a sense of care, which is what we're really about in the NHS. If you're telling us about what motivated you to come into this field, you need to show that you actually love looking after people. You're actually interested in the well-being, not just the physical well-being, also the mental well-being of the people that you're looking after. The third question that mostly comes out is, tell us about the values of the organization. Most organizations work really hard to define what the values of the organization is. Hence the reason why they work alongside a lot of their employees for them to be able to have a voice in explaining what the organization means to them. So in questions that we do ask always in interviews, no matter the level from band 1s to band 9s, is, what do you know about our values? Can you list the values of our organization? How does it relate to you? When you're answering this question, make sure that they've gone onto the website of that organization to read about their values, their ethos, what actually drives them, what accomplishments have they had in the last couple of years, because all that information is always on their website. So I would always suggest to you to go on there and make sure you know the values of the organization. Even if the question doesn't even come out, you can always try and drop it into your answer when you're explaining. When they ask you about yourself, you can always say it in terms of your organization. Your values are this, and this is me as well. My values very much relates to the values of the organization. For this organization, for example, their values are, they are caring, they are kind, they are fair, and they're respectful. I would always suggest for you to try and list out all the values of that organization and then explain it briefly. So for example, if you say they're caring, you can say that care is a very important part of who I am because I like to care for people. I ensure that people that are in my care are well looked after. Another one is respect. I show respect. I ensure that I give dignity and respect to people that I look after on a daily basis. So if you're giving quick snapshots of those values of that organization, they would know you've actually taken your time to actually think about the answers that you're actually going to be giving. Once you finish explaining, I would always suggest for you to then relate it to yourself, give it like a star answer. I would suggest that you pick out one or two and give a proper in-depth analysis as to how you embody that, and also link it into the NHS charter as well, ensuring that both of them are working together. That shows that you're actually not just thinking about yourself, you're not just thinking about the organization, you are thinking of the NHS as a whole, because the people charter for the NHS is something that is very vital, and a lot of organizations, NHS organizations, embody that, and that is always the basis of the values that each of these organizations push out as what they are about. Even though all organizations have different values, the roots of all their values is always based on the NHS. Then talk about that living the values is not just about the grand scale, it's about the little things that actually makes it a big thing. So you're embodying it in terms of you're not just doing it as a one-off, it's who you are. The fourth question that normally comes out during a healthcare assistant interview is, tell me a time that you've worked in a team. This question is about collaboration and working in a team, communication skills, because the NHS is all about team working, communication and collaboration. So they need to understand where your head is at in terms of working together as a team. Your answer needs to demonstrate how you're going to work collaboratively with people, how you're going to communicate effectively, and how you're going to be part of the team, ensuring that you're contributing your own aspect to the betterment and care of the patient that you're looking after. So your answer has to embody all this. This is a good place for you to be able to use that STAR answer method to answer this question. A good example of answering this question is, while working on a busy night shift, when I started during handover, we realized that we're going to be short-staffed because members of staff that were meant to be working with us on that night shift had called in sick. Our priority for that night was to ensure that all our patients are well looked after despite the shortage of staff, and ensure that their care is still at the topmost priority for us to ensure that we do not have any mishaps during that night shift. Myself and my colleague decided to allocate tasks based on priority of need. We decided to divide the patients into two sections on our own to decide how best to look after the patient. We divided the tasks based on urgency. One focused on personal care and the other one on mobility. I supported with the feeding, hydration, and mobility needs of patients that were unable to use the facilities themselves. I ensured that throughout the night, the nurses in charge were kept abreast of all the tasks that we were doing, and any issues that we ran into, we raised all this immediately to the nurses in charge. We managed through the night to care for all the patients safely without having any mishap, and the nurses that were working with us were very pleased with our level of attention to detail and the care that we gave all our patients. It was a successful night shift for all parties involved. The fifth question is, tell us, what do you know about patient safety? And give us an example of how you ensure that patients are safe in your care. The answer to what the interviewer is looking for in this answer is about your collaboration, teamwork, patient safety care, safety protocols within the NHS, knowing what the rules and regulations are. So all what entails to ensure that the patient is safe. So you need to be able to answer this question based on all these parameters. You need to explain what you understand about patient safety, about patient-centered care, collaboration, communication, ensuring that the right people are the ones that are getting the information, ensuring that the patient gets the right information when they do ask it, communicating with the stakeholders. So these are the kind of answers that they want to see. Because if the patient themselves don't actually know what is going on, they become agitated, they become confused. So you need to ensure anyone that has to do with the care of that patient knows what is going on. That's about the patient safety. Because if you're not writing things down, if you're not communicating effectively, the care may be missed. Things that should have been done might not happen, and vital mistakes might happen. So you need to ensure that the patient is at the forefront of your mind, making sure that you're safe and the patient is safe as well. A star answer to this kind of question is, I'm currently working in a ward where there are loads of elderly patients. These elderly patients are prone to slips and falls. I was responsible for making sure that all the patients that in my care, in my bay, are well attended, can reach the call button, are well positioned in their bed, and also have access to water and refreshment if they do need it. While I was checking on one of the patients, who was recently just returned from surgery. I noticed that the blanket was on the floor, the call bell wasn't anywhere near them, and they were looking a bit agitated. I immediately went to this patient, picked up the blanket from the floor, and ensured that the call button was within arm's reach for them to be able to call if they do needed help. After ensuring and securing the patient back on the bed properly, I then went ahead to document this on Datix to ensure that any other person that was going to be looking after this patient would be prone to always check on them to ensure that they haven't had any instances where their call bell is not within their reach. As a result of this, I made sure that I went round to look at other patients to ensure there was no any disturbances to anything that they needed. During that night, there was reason for the emergencies to be raised because all patients were able to call for assistance. The final question, the sixth question is, what will you do if a nurse asks you to do something you're not trained for? This is a question that we're trying to establish what your thinking process is and how you will react to a situation when someone in authority or when someone, a more senior clinician, asks you to do something that you know that you're not trained to do. What will you do? Because you're so junior and because you're being faced with a more senior person, most healthcare assistants try please these senior clinicians. I will always say to you, ensure you do not do this. It might seem as if you are disobeying a direct task that has been given to you. You need to ensure that you're protecting yourself and also protecting the patient who has the most paramount need in all situations. So the ego of the nurse should be put aside when dealing with the situation. Always remember the NHS values of professionalism and respect, especially when you're caring for patients. Patient safety is paramount, so you need to ensure that that's always at the forefront of your mind. If you don't know it, don't do it because it might have a very detrimental effect if you do something that you're not actually trained to do. How I would answer this nurse when asked this question is, I'm sorry, but I am untrained to know how to do it. Do you mind showing me how to do it? Or can I please shadow you so I can learn how to do it and then I'll be able to do it myself? Or do I need to go on a training course for me to be able to do it because I currently do not have the training qualification of how to perform this task? A good example is new nurse unfamiliar with my role asked me to remove a catheter for a patient who is about to be discharged. Although I wanted to be very helpful and ensure that I'm contributing to ensuring that the patient left the ward as soon as possible, I knew that I did not have the skills or the knowledge or even the know-how of how to remove a catheter. As I haven't received the adequate training, I explained calmly to the nurse that I wasn't trained and didn't know how to do it. And in me doing so, might put the patient at risk of injury. I offered a suggestion of helping in doing another task, like getting all the patient's things ready for discharge and putting all the paperwork together ready for the nurse to sign while the nurse did the catheter. And I also said to the nurse I was happy to watch her so that she could explain to me the process and procedure of how to remove the catheter. I then went on further to ask her if there was a special training or if there was a training course that could be offered to me to be able to learn how to do the catheter removal. The nurse was happy and said that she appreciated my honesty in telling her what I knew how to do to ensure that we did not have a near miss during that shift. She encouraged me to put up my name with a senior clinician to go for the training, which I went for the next month. I'm happy to say now I know how to remove a catheter successfully if needed in my team. This answer gives you an understanding of how best to give help. You are still offering help, but doing something different to show support and working collaboratively in that team. There you have it. Those are 6 real life interview questions for healthcare assistants that I pulled out from a recent interview I had where I was sitting on the panel. I hope you've been able to gain a lot from this questions and answers that I've provided today, and it would help you in your next interview. If you're struggling or need help with interview, it's something that I can provide you help with. I currently have a client list where I help people struggling to know how best to answer questions during an interview. This is from my years of experience of sitting on the interview panel, and I believe I'm in the best position to be able to help you to ace those interviews. I hope this video has been informative for you and you've enjoyed it from the start to the finish. And if you do have any questions, please don't forget to send me a comment or even send me an email and I'll be happy to answer you. Or if you feel I haven't covered some aspects or there's something that you actually need to know or I haven't covered it in this video, do let me know and I'll be happy to do a video for you. I do offer a consulting service for you with your NHS application. So from start to finish, from you knowing how best to write your supporting statement to how best to position yourself in answering your questions during interview. If securing your next role in the NHS is something that you need help with, hit me in my email or send me a comment in here and we can take it from there. If you found this video useful and you feel that it has helped you in one way, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share with your friends who might need something like this to help them in securing their next role in the NHS. Until next time, where I bring you more things NHS. Take care. Bye. Secret phrase, biscuit. Secret phrase, biscuit. In the right place, where we don't get to keep any information regarding applying for your jobs in the NHS or employment relations law. If this is your first time here, thanks for coming and thanks for finding my video. I hope you'll be able to get the right insight into applying for your NHS jobs. And if you're a returning viewer, thanks for coming back. I do appreciate your support. To everyone who is watching and yet to subscribe, what are you waiting for? Please let YouTube recommend my videos to other people that might find this content interesting and what they're actually looking for. Please don't forget to like, share, and of course, subscribe. Today's video is another interesting video. I believe will be useful for you with regards to getting your next NHS role. In today's video, we'll be talking about interview questions for NHS Band 5 nurses. I would also be giving you the answers to these questions based on years of experience on sitting on an interview panel. These answers would be sample answers, so you know how best to structure your answers when you're sitting in front of that interview panel. It will ensure that you know the kind of things you need to start thinking about when you're preparing for your Band 5 interview. If this is something you're interested in, please stick around till the end of the video so that you can get all the information regarding those questions that I feel might come out during an interview for a Band 5 NHS nurse. Just so you're aware, I have been on interview panels where I have made decisions regarding the best people to be picked for a role based on answers they've given during those interviews. This is from recruiting people on different bands, from Band 2s to Band 8s. So trust when I tell you that the questions we'll be going through today will definitely come out in one shape or another during that Band 5 nurse interview. You need to use this video as a prep guideline for you to know how best to think for that Band 5 nurse interview so you can best candidate on the day. If you use this video, you will definitely see the difference in your interview and in the way you answer your questions when you're going for your interview as a Band 5 nurse. You need to be confident for you to be shortlisted for the interview. Your application form would have impressed the recruiting manager for you to be shortlisted for the role. So that's already half the battle won in securing your role in the NHS. If you prepare enough and you prepare properly, you would be successful during your interview. As this might be your first proper role since qualifying as the nurse, you need to appear confident, like the best candidate for the job, like you have the experience to be the one that is chosen on that day. It might be daunting based on the fact that you've been training all this while, but have faith in your training that you actually know what you're going to be doing in the role. So we are leaving the theory side and now doing the practical work. You wouldn't be left by yourself to do your work while you're just a newly qualified nurse. What kind of questions should you expect during your Band 5 interview? Questions would range from your experience, your understanding of NHS policies and procedures, your approach to patient care, scenario-based questions based on different aspects of your work, questions regarding safeguarding, teamwork. Those are kind of questions that you should be expecting during your interview. Scenario-based questions would be used to test your ability to know how you're going to perform in different scenarios that might arise during the course of your working day. These questions test your ability to think on your feet, your ability to work under pressure, ability to interpret how you would react during the day would be part of the questions that would be asked. Before we get into the questions, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. This does help my channel out in ensuring that YouTube does recommend my video. Most times, the first question that will be asked during your Band 5 nurse interview is, tell us about yourself. This question is usually an icebreaker just to make sure you're settled and you feel comfortable during the interview. What they really want to know is, why did you apply for the role? Tell us about yourself. Let us know a bit more. So as a newly minted qualified nurse, this will probably be your first proper role as a nurse. So they really want to know what drives you. Tell us why you applied for the role. What has not been written in the application form you want to put across to the manager. So you need to tell them about your short-term goals and your long-term goals. You want to explain to them the reason why you've applied for the job. If you can give an insight to yourself about your passion, about your values, you might want to relate it to your current role that you're doing now and how you want to transpose or transfer those skills that you've learned into the new role. There isn't a one-fits-all answer to this question. It's just about getting to know you a bit more. Things that you've not written down should be coming out when you've been given an opportunity to tell us a bit about yourself. You might want to talk about your experience as well from the previous role as an HCA or other roles that you have actually done that might relate to this role. So it's a really open-ended question that gives you an opportunity to present yourself in the best light. It's just like telling yourself, so you're doing a sales speech in answering this question. The second question in most cases that is always asked is, why have you applied for this role? What they're really asking you in this question is, have you read the job description? Do you feel that this is something that you'll be interested in doing? Have you read the person's specification? Are you the person that we actually feel would work best in this team? For you to have gotten to the interview stage, the manager already feels that you would fit into that team. It is now up to you to sell yourself to the manager and the interviewing panel. So what you're saying at this point is, tell us why you've applied for the role. I've read the job description. See if you can bring out 3 or 4 parts of the job description and explain how that part interests you. You need to show your passion for that role. If it's an organization you've not worked at previously, you need to show that you've actually read about the organization, looked on their website to see what their values are, and you are able to even talk about the values of the organization and your values, aligning them. It has to be about yourself because, like I said in my previous video, the NHS organization is one of those organizations that loves for you to bring your whole self into work. So you need to show that you are empathetic, you're willing to care, go above and beyond for people, because it's about showing that you are the right fit for that organization. You also need to talk about any innovations that organization is actually into. It shows that you've actually taken your time out to go and read up about the organization. You also need to talk about your strengths and weaknesses and bring it back into the question of, why do you want to work for this organization? I have a strength in this because the role that I'll be doing is this. So my strengths lie in this. I want to be able to continue this. So you need to ensure that you're saying how best you fit that role that you've applied for. The third question might be around the core values that guide the nursing practice in the NHS. So what they're really asking you is, what are the 6 C's of nursing? So you need to be able to list it out to them. The 6 C's are care, commitment, compassion, communication, courage, and competence. Those are the 6 C's of nursing. When you list out this, I would suggest you try to explain how these 6 C's would come into practice when you're working. So you can take out at least 2 of them and talk about it in a way that it relates to the role that you're going to be doing. So highlighting how your values and the core values of the NHS work together and how you're going to bring that into the role that you're going to be doing. The 4th question that might likely come out during an interview is, what do you understand about confidentiality? Confidentiality is a very big thing with the NHS because it's all about safeguarding. I would start off with explaining what I believe confidentiality is. Confidentiality is a fundamental principle in the NHS that requires the NHS staff to safeguard, protect sensitive information about colleagues and patients. Confidentiality is crucial to build trust among patients, colleagues, complying with ethical and legal standards, and protecting sensitive information. When you've given the definition of what confidentiality is, then I would suggest that you give a scenario-based answer where you've been able to ensure that you've kept confidentiality. So it might be a situation where you were given an information and you had to ensure that the right people are the only one that get to hear about that information, even though other people might ask you. So for example, an information about a patient's condition, family members that don't have the right to know about the condition might come up to you to ask you about that information. You would explain how you refuse to divulge that information and ensure that you kept the confidentiality of that patient secure by not giving the information to the people that shouldn't have access to that information. This gives you a more robust answer because that is a scenario of what you've experienced and how you've been able to keep confidentiality. I would suggest that you think about other scenarios that might have come up while you're working and have all the scenarios at the back of your mind when you're going in for the interview. A sample 5th question that might likely come out during your Band 5 interview is, have you been involved in a conflict and how did you resolve it? This is another way to test your management skills, your communications, conflict resolution skills. So this question is really trying to gauge how you will react during a situation like this. Although you might not have been involved in a situation like this, there might have been situations of conflict that might have happened while you were on ward. And if you don't have any word-like example or scenario to give, you might also take it from your personal life of how you resolve conflict. Give a realistic example of how you would manage conflict. This is just showing them how to know the kind of person you are. So I would suggest you give a scenario-based answer for this question. So you start from what happened, what measures were taken, and how it was resolved. It's like a STAR method to explain this question. I would also suggest that you look for methodologies or ways of how you were able to use conflict resolution techniques to resolve that issue. The 6th question that might come out during your Band 5 interview is, how do you look after a patient with complex care needs? This is just trying to assess your teamwork. That is what they're really asking you about, is working together as a team. So you need to explain how you've worked together successfully as a team, especially in a nursing environment. So you need to explain working alongside other departments, other teams, from the consultant to the healthcare assistant, to ensure the care of that patient is complete. From you doing your own part, you speaking to other people to ensure that the care of that patient is the paramount thing So you're not looking at it as just me looking after this patient, but the rest of the teams working together cohesively to ensure that patient gets better as quickly as possible. So you would also need to give a scenario of working with a multidisciplinary team. You would need to explain all the strategies that you've used to ensure the patient is looked after properly. If there is disagreement, you will need to be able to explain how conflict resolution and communication was able to be used to ensure that the patient needs are at the forefront of what is being done. Talk about the collaborative efforts that happened on that day, how you were all able to then work together to resolve whatever conflict you had. The seventh question that might come out during a Band 5 interview is, tell us about a near-miss incident and how you handled it. What this question is really asking you is your communication skills, your competence, and your reporting skill. You need to be able to explain what a near miss. This is something that could have happened but was luckily prevented from happening. So this incident could have caused fatality or could have caused injury to the patient or even the employee themselves. So you need to be able to explain what you've done to avoid this near miss, or what you've done when this near miss happened and how you handled that situation. So you need to be able to show how you're going to day text, how you're going to communicate with people, what has happened, how you're going to show your competence to ensure that that doesn't happen. They're following the rules, they're following the policies, and ensuring that when those things even happen, you're filling the right forms to document near misses. Documentation is very important, especially when near misses happen, because this prevents other people from making such a mistake, and is also a learning curve for that department and yourself. If you're not reporting, we're not able to find out. It is worse when you don't report things, then it's later found out. You can be facing a disciplinary. Even though that thing did not happen, you will be facing a disciplinary for not actually reporting. So one of the most vital things that they want to hear during this question is your reporting, your communication, and ensuring that your competence is showing properly when answering this question. You don't have to have been involved in a near miss, but a near miss could have happened at your work. It happens almost every day. There's always day takes to prove this, that things happen. You just need to ensure that it is being reported properly. I hope you've been able to learn a lot with the questions and answers that I've given today based on real life examples of questions that have been asked during a Band 5 nurse interview. There are no perfect answers to the questions that have been asked on the day. You need to ensure that your answers are always in line with the values of that organization, always in line with your 6 core values of the principles of nursing, which is the commitment, the competence, communication, courage, compassion, and care. Ensure that these core values are always in the answers that you're giving. This shows that you are actually thinking of the nurse that you want to be and thinking of the patient as the core part of the work that you're going to be doing. So if you have these core principles of nursing at the back of your mind when you're answering these questions, it would definitely help tailor your answers to ensure that you're answering in the best way possible and showing yourself as an empathetic nurse to understanding the needs of your patients. Thank you so much for staying to the end. I really appreciate you watching this video. And if you enjoyed this video, please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. This definitely helps me out. And I would also want you to share to your colleagues that you feel will be going for interviews that might need this prep as part of their interview prep. Until next time, where I'll be bringing you more insight into the NHS and how best to answer questions. If you do have any questions and you want me to answer them, please leave your comments in the comment section and I'll be happy to answer them. Until next time, take care. Bye. Today, we'll be talking about 6 commonly asked Band 6 nurse interview questions. I would also be giving you the answers to this question based on years of experience on sitting on an interview panel. If you've been shortlisted and been invited to an interview and you're worried about what to prepare for your nurse band 6 role. Today, we'll be going through some sample questions and answers to questions I believe would come out during a band 6 nurse interview. I have other videos on my channel where I talk about setting up the perfect NHS profile or track profile. In one of my videos, I've given you sample answers to the best supporting statement. So if you've not seen those videos, please go ahead and watch them. You can find them in my channel, and I would also pin them to these videos so you can have a look at other videos that would help you ensure that you're putting your best foot forward in getting your role in the NHS. This is a disclaimer. My answers and questions today are from years of experience of being on the interview panel. This is not the box down in an interview, but from years of experience, I've been able to see that these sample questions are what we normally ask for this role when interviewing us. Make sure that you're using this as a guide to your interview preparation and not the gospel truth as to this is definitely what's going to come out. Each trust have their own sets of questions, but the questions that I will be going through today run along in similar comparison to questions that would be asked for a band 6 role. Now that you've applied for your band 6 role, that means you're ready to take on the next steps in furthering your career in the NHS. But there are so many things that are needed for you to become a band 6 or a successful band 6 employee within the NHS. There are different things that needs to be in place for you as a band 6. The roles and responsibility for being a band 5 is totally different from being a band 6. So you need to ensure that you're ready to take on that role as a band 6. I've listed out 5 skills and qualities that you need to have to become a successful band 6 in the NHS. Before we get into the video, I wanted to just explain a bit about myself. I currently work in the NHS where I've been on interview panels. I've been on interview panels from band 3 to band 8. So I actually know what I'm talking about with regards to knowing what the interview panel are looking for as a perfect candidate for their role. This is not just from reading about it. This is from actually being part of the people that make the decisions as to the next staff that will be employed into that team. If this is something you would like to know, please continue on with this video, and I hope I'll be able to help you to securing your next role in the NHS. Before we get into the questions and answer, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel. I would like you to please share this video with your colleagues and friends that you feel would benefit from the questions and answers in securing their next role in the NHS. The most common question that will be asked during your band 6 role is, why did you apply for this role? This in most cases is just an icebreaker to just get you comfortable and knowing if you actually know the reason as to why you applied for the role. When you're answering this question, you need to talk about your career goals. You need to explain to them the next steps in moving your career from coming from a band 5 to a band 6. You need to let them know about your aspiration. You need to let them know about your passion for nursing. You need to let them know about why you're actually applying for the role. So it's about confidence. You need to show confidence that you're ready for that next step, because with band 6 roles, it's all about leadership and management. Going away from band 5s where you still have people telling you what to do. Now as a band 6 employee, you are the one telling people what to do. So you need to show confidence that you're ready to take on that mantle, you're ready to take on that next step in being the decision maker, in being the one that is leading the team, in being the one that is in charge of a unit or a department when your band 7s are not around. So it's about aspiration. You need to talk about what was said during your last appraisal. You need to explain how much you're passionate about nursing, how much you want to further your career in nursing. Hence the reason why when you saw the role advertised on track or an NHS job, you felt that that was the next step. You also need to talk about, if you have a mentor, what you've been advised by your mentor as to where you're actually meant to be seeing yourself. You talk about where you see yourself. You can have a 5-year career goal. I see myself as this, and this is the next step for me to get to that next level. It's about talking and bigging up yourself and showing that you're ready for that next step. The next question would be, what do you understand about the role? What do you think you'll be doing as a band 6? This question is really asking you, have you read the job description and the person specification? The answer to this question is in the job description and the person specification. So you need to ensure that you've read the job description and person specification from top to bottom. This will test your knowledge as to understanding what the role of a Band 6 would entail in that department. If you look at the advert for this role, it gives you a job summary and overview as to what will be expected in the role. So this is what they're asking you. What do you think you'll be doing? So what they're asking you really is, have you read the job description? Are you sure that you can perform this role? Give us examples of how you feel you would be able to do this job. So you need to show that you've read it from top to bottom and give examples. If you can pick out one or two things that was said in the job description to just highlight the fact that you actually know what you're actually going to be doing as your role. And if you can even also give a scenario-based example or something that has happened previously in your role as a Band 5 that you could bring into doing this role as a Band 6, elevating your responsibilities from a Band 5 to a Band 6. That is what they're really asking you. How will you make this better? How are you able to perform this role? Remember, when you're answering all questions relating to a Band 6, you need to think about yourself being currently in that role. So you're answering in an authoritative manner. If I was given this role, this is what I'm going to do. As a Band 6, this is what I'm going to be doing. That is what they really want to hear. They want to really hear your confidence and your passion about coming into that role. In most interviews, there's always going to be scenario-based questions because of the kind of role that you're applying for. As a Band 6, it's a day-to-day changing things happening every day. One day is never going to be the same as yesterday. So what you experience in today's shift might be totally different from what would happen in the next shift. So you need to be able to be ready and be prepared. So next sets of questions will then start asking you about what will you do in this situation. So the next question can be, the next set of questions can be, how would you run a shift? So what they are looking for in this question is time management, your leadership skills, your managerial skills of duty, delegation skills. How would you delegate to your subordinates? How will you manage shift? What we really want to know about is your day, a day in the life of a nurse as a Band 6. So from once you get into work in the morning to when you leave. So you're going to talk about how you're going to allocate shifts, how you're going to make sure that everyone is doing what they need to do, how you're going to allocate breaks, how you're going to ensure that all checks are being done, how you're going to do your handover as well. So everything from once you start your shift that morning to when you hand over to your next colleague that comes to take over from the next shift. So this is what they really want to know. How would you manage that day? How would you make sure that everything runs smoothly? How would you manage conflicts that happens during that day? How would you manage any issues that come up or anything that comes up during that shift? They really want to know your decision-making skills during this day, your management, time management, and proactiveness in managing whatever comes up. So this, I would always suggest for you to put us in a scenario of what has happened in a previous role that you've done. So even though you've not even managed a shift as a Band 5, we still want to see how you would do it, assuming you were in charge of that shift. So a scenario-based answer would always be preferable in answering this question. The next question that might come up during an interview is, how would you manage a staff that is not listening or doesn't do as instructed? Or how would you manage a staff that doesn't do the work that you've assigned to them? This is showing your leadership and managerial skills. They need to know how you're going to manage conflict, how you're going to manage insubordinate staff during a shift. Because in some situation, you might be the staff on board on that day, or you might even have a Band 7 there helping you, but they want to see your managerial skill. They want to see your leadership qualities coming out during this question. So you need to ensure that you're answering it properly. What this answer really needs is about your leadership skills, your managerial skills, your communication skills, which is very important as well, to ensure that you're communicating rightly to the staff that is not listening. And also your teaching and mentoring skills as well need to come into place during this answer. You need to explain consequences of not doing the task that has been assigned to that person, communicating how it affects not just you as the leader of the team on that day, but the patient as well that where they are meant to be serving. The issues that might arise as a reason for them not doing the assigned task, depending on how many staff that you also have in hand. I would always say to people, ensure that you're putting a scenario or explaining or giving us an example of how this has happened in the past and how you're going to rectify it. Put yourself in that situation of how do you think I would like the shifts to run on that day? How do I think I'm doing what I've asked them to do in a very good way, not in an angry or shouty way, just ensuring that you're talking to them, your communication skills is in the most professional level. And in situations when they don't do what has been assigned to them, let them know the consequences. So giving them the good and the bad at the same time, ensuring that they understand you, and always going back to check that they've actually done the task that you've assigned them to do. Another good question that might come up during your interview as a Band 6 nurse is, how do you manage a difficult patient or a difficult family member? This is always a regular question during interviews for a Band 6 because this talks about your conflict resolution, your leadership skills, your communication skills, and effective management of your word during the day. So they need to know how you're going to de-escalate things. They need to understand how you're going to manage people. They need to be able to also know how you're going to ensure that everyone feels heard, because in most cases it's a situation where the patient or the family member don't feel heard or don't be seen. They feel they've been neglected and they need to get their point across, which in most cases is always in a shouting and aggressive manner. You need to be sure you are able to de-escalate situation, be empathetic towards what they're going through, and see things from their point of view to ensure that you are answering them in a polite and a very reasonable manner, taking them out of that situation and putting them in your shoes to explain to them how the next step will go, that they see things from your point of view. In this kind of situation as well, you would also want to know, how do you de-escalate? How do you do your reporting? How you relate to your superiors if it's a situation that is getting out of hand. So we want to see all these different attributes of how you're going to manage that situation. The sixth question that we're going to be talking about today is, how do you support a struggling staff? Or how do you support someone that is a slow learner or someone that is slow during a shift? What the manager wants to know is, because you're going to be at Band 6, you are in that more clinical, you should have more clinical expertise. So you need to be able to show that you are able to support younger or newer nurses that have just recently qualified. Remember that you will be in charge of healthcare assistants, Band 5s and Band 4s. So you need to show that you have that authority and you have that clinical expertise. So this is about your mentorship, communication skills. This is about making sure that they understand their roles and responsibilities during that shift. Well, what we need to hear in this answer is all this: your communication skills, your mentorship skills, your teaching skills, and as I said, give a scenario of how you've helped someone in the past to overcome whatever difficulties they were having during that shift. It doesn't necessarily mean that you already have to be a Band 6. You need to show that you're ready to take on that role. How would I do it if I was a Band 6? How would I want someone to teach me if I was a Band 5? So this is what we really want to hear during this answer. Scenario-based answers are the best. It shows your understanding of what is actually expected of you and shows yourself being in that situation and tackling that situation head on. This is a bonus question that comes out during a Band 6 nurse interview. What is clinical governance? Clinical governance is essentially a framework that ensures NHS organization and their staff are accountable for continuously improving the quality of patient care. It emphasizes responsibility and accountability, ensuring that all aspects of patient care are consistently evaluated and improved upon. Clinical governance has 7 principles. These are education and training, clinical audit, clinical effectiveness, staff management, risk management, patient and public involvement, and information management. In the context of clinical governance, clinical effectiveness, clinical audit, and risk management are essential components that ensure high patient. We'll be looking at 3 of the examples of the pillars of clinical governance during your interview. You would need to just explain at least 3 of them, 2 if possible, 3 better, so the interviewer knows that you actually understand what clinical governance is. In this sample answer, I'll be looking at 3 different pillars of clinical governance. The first one we'll be looking at is clinical effectiveness. You would answer this one by saying, I would apply clinical effectiveness by ensuring that all clinical practices are based on the best available evidence. This means staying up to date with the latest research and integrating evidence-based guidelines into practice to improve patient outcomes. I'll be explaining is risk management. I will focus on identifying potential risks to patients, safety, and implementing strategies to mitigate them. This involves fostering a culture of safety where staff are encouraged to report incidents and near misses, allowing us to learn and improve continuously. The third one we'll be talking about is the clinical audits. I would conduct regular clinical audits to assess the quality of care provided and identify areas for improvement. By systematically reviewing practices and outcomes, we can ensure that any deviations from standard are addressed promptly. I hope this has given you a flavor as to how best to answer the question on clinical governance, which sometimes do come up during a Band 6 nurse interview. I really do hope you found this video very helpful in helping you to prepare for your nurse Band 6 role interview. Please